Crafty Meraki friends, and welcome back to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from Designs by Dee, and today I have a bit of a different card to share with you. So the theme this week is interactive cards, things that have like peekaboo or surprise elements, and I wanted to try something a little different. So I don't know if you've seen twist tie cards. There are like products out there made specifically for creating these cards, but today we're going to do a DIY version of it. So you don't need any special stamps or dies, just what you have or whatever Crafty Meraki products you might have on hand. All you need is a large floral and then some of the Meraki Flora para dies. So I'm going to be using the Mila Meraki Flora and the Elegance stamp set along with just a simple sentiment set. I'm just going to be using the Meraki Moments High stamp set. You can use any sentiment you want. So first of all, I'm going to cut out the base. So this base is cut at 9.5 by 5.5 inches. Okay, so that's the size that you want, 9.5 by 5.5. And then what you want to do is make a gatefold card that overlaps. So we're going to score this at 2 3/4 right there. And then we're also going to score it at 7 inches. Okay, and those are your two folds to create a gatefold card that kind of overlaps by like 1/2 inch in the center. And use like a nice bone folder. You don't have to have anything too expensive. I have this like simple pencil one. It's still Teflon, so I don't actually, didn't have to spend too much money on that big one, but it works really well. And you can see that there's that overlap there. So I said it's about 1/2 inch, and that's what you need to kind of create the nice twist tie. Okay, so we can put our card base aside for a second. I grabbed my Altenew stamp wheel, just any type of stamping platform that you think will make this easy. I thought the stamp wheel worked really well. So I've put my card base on there, I've kind of folded it, and I've centered my Elegant stamp set in the center there. Now we're going to be stamping on the front of this, and we want to remember the folds, the flaps, they overlap. So we're going to have to kind of stamp it once and then move the flap and then stamp it again to make sure we get full coverage. So I'm just taking some tape here. This is just some yellow tape to kind of tape down the two flaps. Otherwise it's going to kind of make a mess when I stamp. I'll stamp this out. I am using some VersaFine Clair Twilight ink. So this is like a bluey ink. It's like a deep blue ink. And so I'm really trying to make sure I've got everything stamped out. Now I can kind of carefully lift this. Be careful not to smudge this because VersaFine Clair has like a pigment nature to it, so it will kind of smudge a bit. I'm like switching the flaps, sticking it down again, and now I'm just going to stamp this out again to complete that stamped image on the other flap. So now carefully remove this again, and you'll see we have one continuous image on each flap. So I could fold it one way or I could fold it the other, and it's always just going to show that one full image. Now I'm opening up the card base here and I'm grabbing some tape. So this is just some removable labeling tape. You could just use a piece of paper or whatever you have on hand to kind of just mask off the back of the card. And we're going to do some ink blending here to really make this front of the card kind of vibrant and pop. I've got some Altenew inks here. I'm going to be using 3 inks. I've got Sea Breeze, and then I think Teal and Starlight. And all I'm trying to do is just to create a nice blue gradient from a deeper blue to a lighter blue color. So I tend to get this comment a lot, and it's that a lot of people have issues with blending from one color to the next and getting a nice gradient so that it flows from one color rather than having like splotchiness and like kind of like a barrier between the two colors. What I like to do is start off with the lightest color, and then when I come in with the second color, I kind of go over a bit of that lighter color to kind of blend the two colors together. Now, I didn't do it here, but if I used one brush to do all of this, which is why I went from lightest to darkest color. But if you have a second brush for your next color, I kind of like to put the first color on and then put the second color on and then come back over the overlap of the two colors with the first brush from the first color. That also helps with blending. So now that I'm done, I'll remove my labeling tape. And you can see the results are absolutely gorgeous. I love this deep blue into the teal and sea breeze. It looks really pretty. Now you just need any type of shaped die. I've got a diamond here and I picked the size that kind of fills most of the card and gives me a good kind of border on each of the 4 points. I'm using a pencil to just kind of trace on the inside where this is going to go on each flap so that I can kind of cut it out on one flap and cut it out on the other, and everything's going to come together seamlessly. So I'm going to first of all cut the side that has most of the pencil on it, depending on which way I folded my flaps. I'll just kind of position my die, and what I see, I flipped it because that other side actually didn't have all of the pencil marks because it was the side that went under the top flap, this flap. So I'll tape this down, and I'm taping it into the center because we're going to remove the center portion. So I like to kind of err on the side of caution. I did die cut this off screen, and you'll see now that I can kind of finish off those pencil marks where it overlaps, and then I'll do the same thing to cut it out. So as I was saying, I like to kind of stick the tape on the side of the paper or the cardstock that's going to be the piece that I'm going to remove, just in case, there's a lot of pressure and then it kind of tears a bit of the cardstock. I don't have to worry if that happens because this is the part I'm removing. So now that that's done, I can kind of remove that centerpiece, and you can see when you fold it, it comes together to create a perfect diamond. Now you could use any shape you want. I just chose diamond because that's what I had on hand. Now I'm grabbing my Mila Meraki dies, and I'm kind of seeing how they can twist tie, right? So these aren't products made specifically for twist tying. So I kind of had to experiment with the different Flora dies to see which stems could kind of intertwine and wind together to kind of close the card. So I ended up choosing the 2 larger florals from the Mila Meraki Flora Paradise set because it looked like they can kind of intertwine to close that card. And what I mean by closing the card is you'll notice that the flaps, they overlap, but it doesn't actually close flat. It's that intertwining or the twist tie that allows the card to close and stay closed, right? So now I've gone ahead and I've taken those 2 Mila dies and I've cut them out 3 times each. So I've got 6 die cuts total. Now I want to add color to these. I'm going to go ahead and use like a deep bluey black for the stems, and then for the petals I'm using pastel sunrise here, and I'm also going to be using like fuchsia, like a pink, so like a peach and a pink kind of together to make a gorgeous again an ombre or like one color to the next type of effect, a nice blend. I like using more than one color because I feel it adds a lot of depth. Now you'll notice out of these 3, I've kind of not really done the 2 on the right as well. I haven't really added as much ink to those as I did on the first one, and that's because that first die cut on the left is the one that's going to go on top, and then we're just going to layer the other 2 behind it. So I only added ink just for the sake of, say that my die cuts don't line up completely. I feel like sometimes when you just use white behind the top layer, the color, you can see the white. I wanted the color to be there just like it was on the front layer. So technically you do not have to add ink to the 2 other die cuts. You do only really need to add it to the first, but I just added it because it's a personal preference. I like to continue that color and not have too much white showing behind the die cut. And it is important to layer these die cuts because you'll notice that stem is what we're going to be using to doing the twist tying. And it's a little flimsy as just one layer, so the 3 layers really help kind of strengthen your die cut. So I'm just continuing along with adding ink to the second flower. Again, only one of these die cuts is going to be inked up very nicely, and the rest of them are just basically to get colors on the edge so that it doesn't show through behind the first layer. Now for the stems, you'll notice I'm using a smaller blending brush, and this just helps me, a detail blending brush, sorry. It just helps me get into that stem portion without, kind of overstepping and going into the petals. If you don't have this, just be really careful with a larger blending brush, and you really shouldn't have too much of a problem. I'm using Nimbus ink on the stems. I think I didn't mention that, but it's just a really nice deep bluey black color that just goes really nicely with this whole color theme. So now I'll go ahead and attach my layers. So I'll start off with the two bottom layers and then the top layer. And you'll notice once you're done here, you'll get a nice thick die cut, which is going to be nice and rigid, and it's going to have a nice structure so that you can accomplish your twist tying in the front of your card efficiently without breaking it. Now, I did a lot of ink blotting for this card. You could decide to do something else. So I did kind of contemplate using Copics on this, but I went with the ink blending. One, because it's just faster. Two, I find that I'm a little heavy-handed with my Copics, and if I did that on the stems, it might just seep through the cardstock so much that it actually thins it out. And I didn't want to thin out those stems any more than they are, because we did make them more robust so that they're have more structure and can hold that twist tie together. So now I am playing with the twist tie. I want to really make sure that this is gonna twist tie properly for this card. It is, I'm gonna say, it's a little bit of a stretch. And remember, this is not specific. The products are not made specifically for this type of card. So we're ad-libbing it. So I'm really just playing around with how this is going to twist tie together. And I think I ended up getting it to twist and have one of the fronds go in the back so that they kind of, the whole point is to get the card to close and stay closed. As long as you can accomplish that, you're good to go. So what I've done is I've kind of twist tied it the way that I want it to go. The flowers are going to overlap. Don't expect to see all of the flowers. That's the whole point. And then you're just going to make sure that either stem is able to be stuck on either of the two flaps. So one stem on the left flap and one stem on the right flap, so that these flowers, when you open the flap, you're going to have one flower on one side and one flower on the other, and then when you put it together, you can twist tie them to stick them together. So I did just use plain old liquid glue to stick those down. I found that this was sufficient enough to hold them in place and not have them come apart, but still allow you to twist tie them. So you can see I've got the two flowers on either side here. I'm just strengthening the one side to make sure that all of that stem is stuck down, because I couldn't really see it because the other flap was over top when I first put it down. And now I'm just playing around with the twist tie. So you could do it any which way you want as long as you get them to twist, right? And stay closed. If you don't feel like these stems are sturdy enough, I am going to add a sentiment over top, which is going to kind of at least stick down that right flower, which only has like one tiny little stem there. And on the left side, you can see you got a stem and a bit of the frond, so that one for sure is going to stick there. It's got a bit more surface area stuck down. So I am kind of just hastening my folds there to make sure they're nice and firm, and so that the card closes. And I think with that, we've pretty much accomplished the twist tie. It seems to work pretty well. You could play around. I did play around with it a lot off camera to make sure it kind of works well. It's not going to be like the twist ties you normally see, because we're using thin stems to do the twisting, but it still works pretty well, I'd say. I went ahead to try and show you guys this card because I thought you're going to see a lot of interactive cards and things that you've probably seen before. I was hoping this would just be something a little different and you might want to give it a try too. So now I've grabbed that Meraki Moments high stamp set, and I've just stamped out the thinking of you sentiment and heat embossed it with some white embossing powder on some black cardstock. And then all I have to do is melt this to the paper, and then I will cut this down into a nice thin banner. So once this is done, then all I have to do is attach the sentiment to the card. Now keep in mind when you do this, you don't want to attach it to both sides, only to one flap, the top flap. If you attach it to both, your card is not going to open, right? It's a gatefold card. So I'm attaching it all to the right side, which is going to be my top flap, and it's also going to hold that stem in place that only has like a little of it kind of overlapping there. So that kind of just completes everything and holds everything in place nicely. So now I can just twist around that flower and put it in front of the frond, and there you get that nice twist tie effect. Now, just to finish this off, I really don't think it needs too much because it's so gorgeous. Those colors actually work together really well. I didn't actually plan it. I just kind of went with the flow. And the blue and the pink and the peach, they look absolutely gorgeous. So I'm adding some ivory opal gems here, and that's pretty much it for this card. And I always like to mention that I use the Meraki Bling Buddy here. I love this one. There are so many of these out there, but I absolutely love this because it's so unique. It's got the black tip. I don't know why I love this so much, but I love the black tip. And it guess it contrasts more against all the embellishments that we have, which really helps. So anyways, that's my card for today. I hope you like the whole twist tie idea and the fact that it's DIY, so you don't need anything special to do this. Go ahead and give it a try and let me know if you like this idea in the comments. Everything that I've used is listed in the description below, so you can always check that out in the Crafty Meraki store. And I hope to see you guys again next Sunday. Have a great day, and I'll see you then. Bye.